Sir, we are going live, sir. Shall we start, sir?
Yes, madam. Please, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Have everybody joined, madam?
Joining, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, respected dignitaries, guests, and delegates, and my dear students. Thank you all for joining for today's webinar. I am Nandini, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, Sri Vidyaniketan College of Pharmacy, Andhra Pradesh. Today we are organizing the national webinar on role of clinical data management in pharmaceutical industry. Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis in association with Industry Institute Interaction Cell. So, as a continuous interaction between the industry and academy, it provides the platform for both the students as well as the faculty members to be aware what is the industrial expectations and skills to be built upon the students. So, this interaction cell will enable the students to be aware of the skills required and what the academy should provide and upgrade to the students. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our request as today's chief guest. Now, I would like to invite respected Principal Dr. Anna Balish sir, Sri Vidyan Ketan College of Pharmacy, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Nandini. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all. I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt and deepest thanks to our Honorable Chairman, Sir, Dr. Mohan Babu Garu, and our revered CEO, Sir, Mr. Vishwardhan Babu Garu, and all the senior functionaries of our Sri Vidyaniketan Education Trust for always providing the necessary permissions and always encouraging us to conduct many such programs. And today, I first of all would like to thank Mrs. Stravia, who is the data manager, Novo Nordisk Center, India Private Limited, Bangalore, for accepting to deliver this talk on role of clinical data management in pharmaceutical industry for the benefit of the pharmacy students, faculty of Sri Vidyaniketan College of Pharmacy, as well as other institutions. Thank you, madam, and we welcome you to Sri Vidyaniketan College of Pharmacy. Thank you for accepting our request and agreeing for delivering this talk. I also congratulate today's Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis team, which has put in a lot of hard work in the conduct of this program. It is functioning in association with Industry Institute Interaction Cell. Both the teams have worked very hard to make this a program a grand success. I congratulate Dr. B. Purnima, the coordinator, organizing secretary, and Mr. Jagdish, who is the coordinator, and the rest of the team for taking care for the smooth conduct of this program. I would like to add a few words by saying that clinical data management is a critical phase in clinical research, which leads to generation of high quality, reliable, and statistically sound data from clinical trials. This helps to produce a drastic reduction in time from drug development to marketing stage. During the clinical trial, the investigators collect data on the patient's health for a definite time period. This data is then sent to the trial sponsor, who then analyzes the pooled data using statistical analysis. The review and approval of new drugs by regulatory agencies is dependent upon the trust that the clinical trial data presented are of sufficient integrity to ensure confidence in results and conclusion presented by a pharmaceutical company. It is important to obtain trust and adherence to quality of standards and practices that leads to success. Hence, pharmaceutical companies must assure that all staffs involved in clinical research are trained and qualified to perform good data management tasks professionally. While conducting clinical trials, there are multiple multidisciplinary teams involved. The teams involved are clinical investigator, site coordinator, trial pharmacist, biostatistician, lab coordinator, project manager, clinical research manager and associate, monitor, ethics committee, regulatory affairs committee, pharmacovigilance, IT personnel, clinical supply, auditors, and compliance department. The clinical data management is a vital vehicle in clinical trials which ensures and achieves key objectives, which includes ensuring integrity and quality of data being transferred from trial subjects to a database, checks out collected data is complete and accurate so that results are correct, assures that the clinical trial database is complete and accurate and a true representation of what took place in the clinical trial, make sure that the database is sufficiently clean to support statistical analysis and its subsequent presentation and interpretation. The key players involved in clinical data management are the project supervisor, project clinical data manager, data management assistant, database designer, database administrator, medical coding associate, quality assurance associate, data manager, data entry manager, staff responsible for backup and storage, and also the administrative staff. So the clinical data management team includes specialists who have been recruited to enter, check, and analyze the information gathered by the survey team. As for the skills and qualifications, all the members of the clinical data management department should be methodical and extremely attentive to the smallest details, possess knowledge of technology, organizational and management skills with the critical thinking and ability to follow instructions consistently, but raise concerns when appropriate. And of course, have boundless willingness to learn. With this a few words, I would allow the expert to talk more about the clinical data management, who is from a very reputed industry. And I once again thank the management, the senior functionaries of Sri Vidyaniketan Education Trust, and I also thank the Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis and Industry Institute Partnership Cell for providing me an opportunity on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request K. Padmini, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, to introduce our today's speaker.
Good afternoon to all. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our today's chief guest, Mrs. Tina Sai Shravya, Data Manager in Novo Nordisk Center, Bangalore. She holds her PG diploma in preclinical, clinical research, biostatistics, and data management from PES University, Bangalore. She received gold medal in her graduation from Shri Padmavati Mahila Vishwavidyalayam. She also received J.B. Modi Best Students Excellence Award from Indian Drug Manufacturers Association and Pratibha Puraskar from Government of Andhra Pradesh. Previously, she worked as Associate Clinical Data Coordinator at Quintels Research India Private Limited. She has core competencies in the areas of clinical data management like good clinical data management practices, case report form designing, understanding of data management plan, clinical data interchange standards consortium, and clinical research like ICH GCP guidelines, drug discovery and development process, bioequivalent studies, and bioavailability studies. She was well trained on CRF annotation and clinical database design consideration, CRF filling guideline preparation, informed consent document preparation, and protocol preparation. We are very honored by your presence on this occasion, ma'am. Thank you very much. With this short note, I welcome you, ma'am, for today's webinar on role of clinical data management in pharmaceutical industry. I request Shravya, ma'am, to start the session.
Thank you, Mrs. Padmini, and thank you, Dr. Principal, sir, and all the dignitaries present here. And thank you all students for showing interest in the session. I hope you all can hear me, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you. Can I share my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you all see my screen?
No, ma'am. Screen.
No. No.
No, ma'am.
Just give me a second. Yeah. Can you see now?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Welcome all for the small session regarding the role of clinical data management in pharmaceutical industry. As you all might be aware by now, I work as a clinical data manager and I've been working since 2015 in this department. Moving on, we have a couple of items in this agenda for this session today. And by end of this session, I hope most of us will be able to understand some of the topics listed below, like clinical trials, clinical data management, what are the process involved, roles and responsibilities, what's the objective, and some other roles which clinical data managers work with. Please do stop me if I'm too fast or if you have any questions. So before we jump on to the topic, the today's topic, clinical data management, we'll take up what is clinical trials first. Let us understand before we move on. So clinical trial is any research on human subjects that involves an investigational medicinal product. Investigational medicinal product is anything which is discovered for the first time, which is not yet approved or licensed to be used. So basically, these trials are aimed at evaluating the medical, surgical, or behavioral intervention to find out if a new treatment, like a new drug or a medical device, is safe and effective in people. So we do have different phases in clinical trials. It's not a single process. There are a lot of things that go on. So which basically consists of 4 different phases. The first one is phase 1. Just some disturbance. Can someone mute over there? Yeah, thank you. So we have 4 different phases of clinical trials. The first one being the phase 1. Phase 1 trials basically concentrate to evaluate the safety of the drug in healthy volunteers. So we don't use the actual patients who are aimed at the disease, but we use the healthy volunteers to mainly study the safety of drug before we proceed on to the further phases. This phase 1 trials usually consists of very limited number of subjects or participants, probably like 100 to max 200, just to evaluate the safety. It can also be the pharmacokinetic and some of the bioequivalence trials we have just heard about, but the trial population will be mostly healthy volunteers. And phase 2, this is mainly to determine the safety and efficacy of the drug in patients. So this is where we actually start working on the drug in the patients who have the disease which we are aiming at. And phase 3 is a significantly larger trial which has huge number of patients. This is mainly aimed at collecting the safety, efficacy, and overall benefit risk profile. So this is a major part of the trial, the anti-clinical trial, where we kind of produce a kind of provide the supportive data to have our drug released or to have our drug used by the patients. And the next one is phase 4. By the time we have the phase 4, the drug would have already been released to the market. And once it is marketed, then we study in a huge number of world population. So these post-marketing studies usually study on various number of adverse events or any other kind of events that occur once we have marketed the study in various types of population across the world. For example, recently we have this sunscreen from Johnson and Johnson. It was called back due to some traces of benzene that has been revealed and causing side effects. So these are called post-marketing studies. So it's released to entire population in the world. So these are the major clinical trial phases we work on, and all the 4 clinical trial phases require a major part of the process called clinical data management. So in the clinical trial, we have different roles, as you can see: investigator, coordinator, pharmacologist, trialist, statistician, lab, project manager, monitors, regulatory people, safety surveillance, clinical supplies, pharmacists, auditors, physicians. There are many people who are involved in clinical trials but all these people had to coordinate with clinical data management in order to provide the data uh, which needs to support the drug which we're working on. So coming to the topic, clinical data management. Yes, clinical data management is a critical phase in the clinical trial. It's common across all the phases that leads to generate high quality, reliable, and statistically sound data from the research. So when we say data, this is all the information we gather from the 4 phases of clinical trials. So this data is put into statistical tables or converted into statistical graphs or reports and then submitted to the regulatory authorities. But in order to do that, we need clinical data management. So this is an overall overview in a in a pictorial format. Just to explain in a short way, we have a subject where the investigator provides the drug and takes the samples and send to laboratory. And again, after administration of the drug, we collect data and that will be entered into the CRFs, which will be worked upon by monitors and the data managers. All three of us, we exchange. CRF is a case report form. It's in a layman terminology, it's kind of an application which gives us some of the fields to fill in. The same way, we also create the forms where we expect the site team to enter data, whatever we require after administering the drug. So monitor, investigator, data manager. With three of us until end of the trial, we will be working in close collaboration to clean the data and provide it to statistician and the study physicians. These two people, they analyze the data and then provide it to regulatory authority in the form of NDA, which stands for New Drug Application. So before we submit a new drug application to a regulatory authority, we should have a sound, statistically sound data, which should be of high quality, accurate, and precise. So to provide that data, we need clinical data managers. So what do we do in CDM, clinical data management? Here on, whenever I refer CDM, that refers to clinical data management. Okay? And yeah, these are the some of the processes or activities we do in clinical data management. I've listed out few. Uh, the first thing is about case report form, the one which I just said. It's kind of application which we design to fill in the documents, to fill in the information which we expect as per our protocol or as per the trial requirement from the site after administering the drug. Once we design the CRF, based on the CRF, we need to design the database. And then we need to do data entry, we need to QC it, we need validation procedures. So when we say database, it's a software basically. This software allows us to imbibe some of the programs by which we can easily identify the data discrepancies whenever we expect some of the out of range values. Let's say, for example, it automatically pops up as a validation procedure. It validates inside the system and provides us a query saying that this particular data has an error which is out of range. And then reconciliation of data from different sources. So we, in a clinical trial, we have data from different sources. Different sources in the sense the data which comes after administration of the drug is distributed among different sources. One is sent to lab, one is sent to safety, one is given to safe data management, one is given to medical writers. So all this sources of data, we will collect it together and reconcile it to have the same kind of accuracy. And we also do medical coding in CDM, and we do discrepancy management. We clean the data, we report the status to the stakeholders, and we QC the database and that database so it is accurately validated. And then we lock the database once we are sure that all the data is complete, clear, and concise. To have all this data management activities performed, we need some of the systems. I have listed down a few here. The first one is the major one is the EDC, the current trending one, electronic data capture. So this is the database which we were talking about now. So this electronic database, data capture is kind of database which is built in the system. So this system will be used to fill in all the case report forms. Before EDC coming up, we do have some of the case report forms in paper, just in case if there are any technicalities that we might face using the EDC. And we also have TMS that is used for coding, the thesaurus management system. And we also have CDW, the clinical data warehouse. So whatever data we collect on a daily basis, let's say the subject comes today, until the end of the trial, we do collect his data on a daily basis, each and every day, as and when there is an assessment or intervention. All this data will be collected and transferred to one single warehouse called clinical data warehouse. This warehouse should be clean and complete, based on which the data is further transferred to the next systems for the statisticians. And RDC is another kind of database, the remote data capture. It allows us to QC or do the data cleaning purposes remote way, not even being at the site. So the site coordinators can enter it anyway. The patients can enter their own diary informations. So this is something which can be done in a remote way. The next one, as I just said, electronic data capture is the main software or the core component to perform the CDM activities. Some of the examples of what we use the softwares currently in trend are Inform, Medidata Rave, MedRio, Data Labs. These are some of the examples of these softwares, software databases basically. And I've just provided a screenshot for all of us to have an idea what CRF looks like. So as I just said, it's a simple application form which we all fill during our entire study life or any other purpose. We just ask information, we expect it to be filled in as and when it is there. Then what do we do in data management? We extract data, we clean data, and then we log it. How do we do that? So first, when we have a data, we have whenever there is a discrepancy, we have a real-time query popped up in the database. So we go back and check in the database whether all the queries are answered. When they are answered, we do the data cleaning techniques. That is, one is detecting and diagnosing the errors. Once they answer the queries, we still have to go back and see whether the answered queries and the provided information does actually match with what we are expecting. Editing incorrect data. If we see there are some problems, or if we see any kind of technical errors or uh, kind of spelling mistakes or something, we can go back and edit the data, but not the source. Integrated data passage, and we need to check whether the kind of data reported by the site is can be passed on to different systems. Let's say if I say something as topical, it should be reported as dermal as per the standards. Then I need to go back and check what is accepted by the standards and what should be reported. So I go back and see and I query back. An outlier determination. This is the basic example that I've just provided. It's about the ranges for most of the assessments, what we do for the BP, pulse, temperature, and other laboratory assessment. And robust estimation of analytical parameters. This is where we pharma students play a critical role because based on the background knowledge of the studies we have done, we should be able to estimate the analytical parameters. Let's say if we have a BP, we all know that there is a common normal range, and we should be by default we should be able to identify this. So this is where we as pharmacists play a critical role in identifying or cleaning the data. And once all this is done, when you're sure that everything is okay, then you declare the data as clean. Let's say if the query is not answered, what do? We need to take an approval. So it's not only us who are handling the trial. We have pharmacologists, medical specialists, study physician, everybody involved. We need to explain them why the query is not answered, and we need to take a confirmation whether even the query is not answered, the data is discrepant. Still, can we go ahead and log the data? If it is yes, we go ahead and log the data. And if it is no, we go back and do the entire process of querying and the data cleaning. So what do we do after we log the data? We pass it to the statistical analysis team. They actually determine whether the data based on the trial protocol or the trial design, they determine whether it is need to be whether it need to be in an analytical representation to submit, or it just need to be a normal report or chat. If it is reported, then the actual SAS programming or the data computer language is what we talk about now. These days, the SAS or any other data programming languages come up in picture. So then we require SAS datasets, statistical data analysis, tests of hypothesis, and cohort analysis. Once all this is done, then we produce the results out of it, and then they will be provided in the form of data, summary, charts, graphs, tables, etc. which will be finally converted into a clinical trial report. Clinical trial report is nothing but the entire information about a trial, which will be provided to the regulatory authorities in an understandable language. Yeah. So what are the roles? This is a basic process as what do we do in clinical data management. This is what we actually do. What is required to be done in clinical data management and what is expected out of us. And what are the roles involved in clinical data management to perform all this? We do have certain teams to do certain people to do this particular process. It's not a single person who can do, right? So we have a CRF designer, database designer, data programmers, data managers, medical coders, data entry personnel, safety data managers, medics team, and the documentation associates. Let's go ahead and see what are the different activities done by these different people. CRF designer, this is the person who is responsible to design the CRF or create a CRF as per the trial recommendation specified in the protocol. So we have a protocol. So where does this entire thing starts up? We have a document, the mother document called protocol, that describes each and everything that should be done that is expected out of a trial. So we take this mother document as a CRF designer, we understand what is expected out of this trial, and we put it into a paper form, into a paper format describing what is actually needed. What should we ask the site for? What should be collected from the subject? So we play a major role for the paper trials because we convert the specifications or requirements into a paper form. Then database designer. So when we come to a database, we transcribe the CRF which we create in the paper into a database. We need to put some programming, then we need to annotate some kind of items, the trial elements, and we need to pull out the same kind of CRF, the example, the replica of the paper CRF into a database. And the data programmer, yes, data programmer is someone who has in and out of knowledge of the EDC, who can tweak the programs, include the programs, and update the database in order for us to provide the validation checks. Validation checks are something which I just explained, which can provide us the queries, which can easily pop up the discrepant data. And they also help us to provide the derivation procedures. Derivation procedures, I don't want to take it into deep because it might not be related, but derivation is something which we do manually. We extract different data from existing data. So we can produce using a derivation procedure that can be done in EDC. Uh, let's say, let's say we have the same example, BP and temperature. We have the ranges, but out of a derivation, we derive it as either as normal or abnormal assessment for the blood pressure. And then we have the major role, the center point of contact, the data manager. So this data manager is the single point of contact to all the people throughout the trial who makes sure the data is clean, clear, and concise and accurate. So what do? We sit, and once we have data entered in EDC, we identify the queries, resolve them. When we see data issues, we raise queries. We again carry out the manual checks. We should do lab review. We should do CRF tracking, whether all the CRFs as we expect as the field. And we also contribute the sole responsibility to ensure the data quality before we give it to stats for their further analysis, because we are taking the ownership of the data, the ownership of the trial, so that this should be understandable, this should be clear, and this should be easily interpreted in the way we want it. So we data managers play a major role uh, in the clinical data management. And we have people called medical coders. These are also, most of the medical coders are from pharma field, wherein they identify the medical terminology out of this clinical data, what we collect all through the trial. They take out those medical terms, let's say any disease terms or any medications that the subjects have used, or any events or any surgeries or any events that has happened during the course of the trial. So they identify all the medical terminology and they put it into a common standard text which is provided in the dictionaries. So we have dictionaries such as Medra and WhoDD. Medra is a medical dictionary for the regulatory authority, and WhoDD is the World Health Organization drug dictionary. So these dictionaries are created as a mandate to follow the same kind of terminology for the medical related words to be used across the world. So if we code, let's say if we have a fever, that can be referred to as any other term in any other region. But when we have to code it, this should be coded as fever only as per the metra. Because fever is the only thing that can be understandable by anyone across the world. The major intention of this is to provide easy interpretation of the data so that they don't get confused. So when you have a dictionary, you have to code the medical terminology into the terms provided in that dictionary. These medical folders also play an important part. And we have safety data managers. These are again the pharma people who sit and review data, uh, basically for the safety events like side effects, what can happen based on each drug. Because we do study the pharmacology and understand what are the expected side effects or adverse events out of each drug, and we need to see whether these adverse events might be related or might not be related, and we need to do the reconciliation of this data. Again, the safety data managers, they have another database that's called Argus. Okay. And data entry personnel, these are the people who sit at site and enter data into our EDC as per our requirement. Medics team is someone who is sitting at the site as well as in-house in the organization who reviews data on a medical perspective in a higher level. These are mainly doctors and PhD holders in doctor, particular specializations. So these people, they sit and see what is expected and how the data looks like. And we do have this documentation associates. They help us to maintain documentation throughout the trial, which needs to be provided to the regulatory authorities. Yeah. Any questions until here? Am I going too fast? No? Thank you. Yes. Moving on. So what do we do? What is the objective of this CDM? Why do we have to do the CDM in such a way that is described in standards or something? This is because the integrity and quality of data being transferred from trial subjects to a database system. Because we are very important, because we are collecting somebody's personal data and we are storing it in a system. So we need to be really careful to handle that particular data, which is really, really sensitive. And we need to ensure that the data collected is complete, accurate, and correct. This is because the outcome of this data determines the usage of the drug, and it determines the quality of life for thousands of people out there in the world once it is released. And we need to support the statistical analysis people to have sufficiently clean data, and we need to ensure that it is fit for interpretation and presentation for the regulatory authorities. So we do have some other roles which are involved in in the organization for providing the data out. We do have statistical programmers, statisticians, medical writers, and CTMS professionals. CTMS is clinical trial management systems. So these are also kind of softwares or warehouse, as we can say. So we do have some people working on the trial management systems. So the let's see what all these people do. The statistical programmers, they extract data and map into specific formats. So what do we give the data, whatever we give after logging to the stats people? In those stats, they have two different roles, programmers and the statisticians. Programmers, they extract it as needed and they put it in the form of reports or listings as required by the sponsor. So each sponsor has a different way of presenting the data to regulatory authorities. So as per the format defined by the sponsor, the programmers have to extract the output out of the data which we have given them. These statisticians, then the statisticians are basically MSc stats or someone who has studied that. They know all the statistical programs, formulas and things. So they do all their work on the programmed reports and analyze the data as per a pre-approved statistical plan. So this statistical plan is also differs from sponsor to sponsor, and based on this pre-approved plan they put it in the interpretation modules. Next, we have medical writers. These medical writers, they generate clinical study report or the clinical trial report. So these are the end people working with the entire data or entire trial things what we have worked upon until now. We have logged the data, we have given it to stats, we have analyzed it, we have provided results and produced it in the form of reports. Now all this will be given to medical writers. The entire information will be written in text, so they write it basically in pages and paragraphs, and the study report is usually 200 to 300 pages, which gives entire information of what happened in the trial, what is the use of the drug, how it can be used, what is actually the result what we have got. This CSR is the main thing that is submitted to the regulatory authorities. So to conclude, the ultimate goal of CDM is to assure that the data which we clean or which we work upon support the conclusions drawn from the research. So when we do some research, we do have some assumptions or some conclusions in mind. So we data managers or the clinical data management people working entirely, we should make sure that all the data we got, is according to the conclusions or not. We need to assure that it is going in an expected way or not. This helps in protecting the public health and confidence in marketed therapeutics. Yes, I think I'm done now. Uh, the session is open to the questions.
If you have any queries, can ask. Okay. Ma'am, today there will be different fields like medical coding, pharmacovigilance, and clinical data management. And why should we prefer only, what is the importance in future scope by choosing the clinical data management?
See, we have medical coding and other roles as well, but most of them can be automated. Medical coding can be automated because the dictionary, if you put it in some database, you can go and just automate things and put it as a report out of SAS. We have many technical stuff coming up. The whole point of clinical data management is you act as a major center point of contact. So automatically you need to have the project management skills. So you can act as a project manager for the entire trial, which can be used in any other way as well. So without data manager, things cannot work out. So since it is a major key role as part of the entire trial process, the more importance is for the data manager than the other roles.
Is there any software related courses data management?
I don't think so. We need to study any particular software courses to have experience or hands-on work in data management. But if you are interested, you can also learn SAS uh, or SAP for the statistician responsibilities or the programmer responsibilities. You can also get interested or get involved in the SQL scripts, Oracle, and Python. These are some of the things which the programmers use to create the validation checks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening your active presentation. How careful and how should we maintain this data after the clinical trials?
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
ma'am.
It was my pleasure indeed to explain all this. Thank you.
Nandini, I have a question, Nandini, to the speaker.
Yes, sir, please.
Madam, can you just kindly say a few words about how our pharmacy students fit into this system from, say, level 1 to the higher levels? How do they climb up the ladder, and how much time does they take? What is the pathway, to make a career in clinical data management?
Yes, sir. I can give kind of insight upon the question you had, but I can also say that there can be different ways to get into the industry. Basically the recent requirements are requiring major M pharmacy at least, or the PG, the postgraduate degree, to have entered into the fresher course. So when you start as a fresher, there are multiple ways, as I have explained in clinical data management. We have clinical coordinators, safety people. So any of the role you can pick up and join as a fresher. Let's say medical coder, you can join as a fresher in medical coder. Then you gain importance and then you understand the entire organization requirements. You can jump again to clinical data management with the medical coder experience. Or if you want to go with the safety, you need to go to the pharmacovigilance related job openings. So there also there is a chance of joining as a fresher, and you will be promoted into the next levels as associate 1, associate 2, and then project manager, and then data manager. And you can also learn some programs, as I just said, SQL or Python, and then you can directly apply for the programming team, which does the validation procedures. But that does require some experience. So the basic ladder starts with the clinical trial associate or the clinical coordinator, who enters and basically raise queries and closes the queries, and then you get promoted to the next levels of a data manager.
Thank
Does
you,
it
madam.
answer your question, sir?
Yes, madam. Thank you. That as because for the benefit of my students.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. I hope it does.
Any queries?
Madam, good evening, madam.
Good evening.
Madam, I would like to know any free courses or a workshop, any program available for students, madam?
I don't think so any free courses are available, but you can go into the internet and search for some of the details around the entire clinical research, and there are a lot of books, e-books, and you can also install some of the applications where you get some more details of clinical research entire process. But there are also courses. We do have MPharm in clinical research in Mysore. JSS College of Mysore does that course, MPharm in clinical research. And there are certain courses provided by some private organizations like ICMR, also this Clinical Research Academy, ICRI, and we also have in Karnataka one of the biotechnology department, Ministry of Biotechnology. They, in collaboration with Government of India Biotechnology, they roll out kind of yearly or twice in a year. Sorry, 2 years once they roll out a examination called KBAT, Karnataka Biotechnology Aptitude Test. That's what I have written actually. After my B.Pharm, I have written that national wide exam, and there will be 25 seats out of entire India. So you need to pass that examination, face an 8-panel interview, then you will be given an admission into this course that is called Biotechnology Finishing School. It has many departments, not only clinical research. It has genomics, bioinformatics, medical coding. So there are 12 departments, if I remember correctly. So all of these are somewhere related to the industry of clinical research, and you can get into it. And if you are succeeding in that courses, then you can get a picture of what is actually going in the industry. This is more of a technical course which you need to provide a hands on, and then you can, with that experience, you can apply for the fresher jobs.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any queries, sir?
No, madam. You can continue, madam.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Because we don't know how importance after the clinical trials, that data should be managed. Thank you, ma'am, for your active presentation.
You're
Now,
welcome, ma'am. Thanks so
thank
much.
you. Now I request respected Principal Dr. Anna Balaji sir to felicitate our today's chief guest. Now I request respected Principal sir Dr. Anna Balaji sir to felicitate our today's chief guest.
Nandini madam, I am waiting for you to change the screen. Can you kindly display the certificate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I request all the people to mute themselves. I once again take this opportunity to thank Mrs. K. Tina Sai Shravya, Data Manager, Novo Nordisk Center, India Private Limited, Bangalore, for accepting our invitation and delivering such a beautiful and erudite talk on role of clinical data management in the pharmaceutical industry for the benefit of the pharmacy students of Sri Vidyaniketan College of Pharmacy as well as other pharmacy colleges. Madam, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and delivering such a beautiful talk. We are presenting you a certificate of e-certificate of appreciation. Please kindly accept it. It will be emailed to you. A hard copy of it also will be posted to you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do visit our college when you are coming to Tirupati. And
Yes.
please plan to deliver one more lecture in our beautiful Dasari auditorium.
Yes.
When the lockdown is lifted. I wish you also all the best, madam. Thank you very much from on behalf of myself and the College of Pharmacy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Y. Jagadish, Assistant Professor, to deliver vote of thanks.
Hello, is audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I feel that is a great opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to all who have helped me for giving such a wonderful webinar for grand success. On behalf of Industry Institution Interaction Cell and Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, I extended a vote of thanks to Honorable Chairman Sir, respected CEO Sir, then respected advisors Sir, and directors of the Sri Vidyaniketan Educational Trust, and respected Principal Sir for providing such a facilities for doing this kind of webinars and all of the rest of the programs. I would like to express such a grand thankful to Principal and convener of our program, Dr. Anna Balaji Garu, for great his support and encouragement, and Dr. B. Purnima ma'am, Head of the Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, and Dr. K. Sarvanakumar Garu, Head of the Department of Pharmaceutics, for giving continuous support and suggestions for making success of this program. I would like to thank Miss Y. Nandini ma'am and K. Padmini ma'am, T. Sudhir Kumar sir, then Srikant sir for their support for giving a such an opportunity and doing such a wonderful webinar for our benefits. Thank you all. Last but not least, I express my sincere thanks to all teaching staff and students of various institutions for our participation and cooperation. Thank you all. We will continue the learnings like this, so much of webinars. Thank you, sir. Thank you too, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for your active participation. We hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.